The Rambam in Mitzvah Kuf Ayin Vav 176 states that there's a mitzvah to appoint judges, to bring the laws of Torah into reality, and to furthermore punish those that violate the law. The Rambam goes on to say that there are 23 judges in a small court, a Sanhedrin Ketana, and there are 71 judges in a Sanhedrin Gedola, a large court. And this large court of 71 was in Yerushalayim and Jerusalem. How do we know that a court has 70 plus 1 above them? This we find in the Torah, that God tells Moses, "Gather together for me Shivim Ish, gather together for me 70 men." And here we see that already God was the one that gave this number to Moses to create this Sanhedrin, to create this forum of law. So this is the pshat that, as we find in the Torah, Shoftim v'shoitrim titin lecha b'chol sharecha, that the Torah tells us in Deuteronomy 16 verse 18, in the portion of Shoftim, that you are to establish for yourself judges and policemen, judges to establish the law, and policemen to enforce the law. This is the pshat, the simple interpretation of the mitzvah. What is the remez, the hint for the future? Will there be courts? Will there be a Sanhedrin when Mashiach comes? And to this we have a verse in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 1, chapter 1, verse number 26. There it says, "Vashiva sheftayich kavirishoina v'yitzayich kivatchila," which means God says, "I will restore your judges as they were in the beginning, and your counselors and your advisors as they were at first," implying that after Mashiach comes, there will also be judges. However, as the Rebbe points out, that there will be judges, but there won't be policemen. There will be no need for policemen. On the contrary, instead of policemen, there will be advisors and counselors. They will explain the beauty of the law, and therefore, logically, each person will see how Torah is so sane and so beautiful and so normal, and makes so much sense, that there is no other way that one should live their life outside of Torah. And therefore, there will be no reason for shoitrim, which are policemen, to carry out the law, because on the contrary, by each person talking to their advisor and each person talking to their counselor, they will come to this understanding on their own. And this is the meaning in Remez, the hint for the future pertaining to the laws of judges. What is the drush? What is the homiletics and the law? We find a very interesting halacha. The Rambam says, pertaining to the large court of 71 rabbis, that if the defendant was brought to the court for murder, and all 71 judges charge him with murder and say that he's guilty, says the Rambam, the halacha is that he is patur, he is not guilty, he is acquitted. Interestingly, we find that in America and many other countries, there's a concept called the hung jury. And that is, unless there is a unanimity amongst all the jurists, the person is not found guilty, or there has to be at least a supermajority. In Torah law, we find the opposite, that if there is a unanimity, that all the judges come along and say that this person is guilty of the crime, he's guilty of murder, then the law is, he's patur, he is acquitted. What is the reason behind this? So one of the answers that is given by the Rebbe is based on the Kesef Mishnah in the laws of Eidim Zoymim. These are the laws of false witnesses. We are told which means that if two witnesses come along and say, we saw Ruvain kill Shimon on Sunday morning, and they go to court, and Ruvain is found guilty, and because he is found guilty for killing Shimon, the law is that Ruvain is to die. Says the Torah that if these two witnesses are found to be false witnesses, in other words, two other witnesses come along and say that these witnesses were together with us Sunday in the Bahamas, there's no way that they witnessed this crime of Ruvain killing Shimon, then the law is you are to do to them what they wanted to do to Ruvain. And therefore these two witnesses are now put to death, because they wanted Ruvain to be put to death. But let's say after these two false witnesses testified that Ruvain killed Shimon, and the court accepted their testimony, and they put Ruvain to death, only afterwards did we find out that the two witnesses were false witnesses, because another set of witnesses came along and said that the first set of witnesses were together with us on Sunday in the Bahamas. Then says the Torah, we do not put the first set of witnesses to death, because the Torah tells us kasha zomam lasos, we put them to death only what they wanted to do, not if they did it. And because Ruvain was now put to death because of these witnesses unjustly, we do not kill the first set of witnesses. What's the reason behind it? Says the Kesef Mishnah, a very interesting thing, that the purpose of punishment, the purpose of lashes and the purpose of capital punishment in the Torah is to bring about cleansing of the individual. And therefore, by putting the person to death or giving lashes to the perpetrator, that person is forgiven for the sins. Sometimes, however, the sin is so grave and the sin is so gross and the sin is so hideous that the person is not worthy and is undeserving of receiving the punishment. In other words, the punishment is not great enough to be able to cleanse the individual from the crime, to be able to wipe away the sin of the individual. And therefore, the person does not receive the punishment. And here too, says the Rebbe, would be the situation when all 71 judges of the High Court, who are judges of Chachamim and Devoinim, tremendous intellects, and people that understand the secrets of the law, when these 71 rabbis come along and they say that this person is guilty, it must be that he is so guilty and so spiritually sick that there's no way that he has any redeeming qualities that allows him to receive the punishment. And therefore the law is patur, he is acquitted, he does not receive the punishment. This is the drush, this is the homiletics and halacha pertaining to a case where all 71 judges of the big court will come along and say, unanimity, all as one, that he is liable. Says the Rambam that on the contrary, he is patur, he is not liable. And therefore the law is that they must continue to deliberate until they will change and find guilt in this individual. And as long as some of the judges will find him guilty, only then can you fulfill the punishment. This is the drush. What is soid? What is the esoteric level of the Torah pertaining to the court of 71? In other words, how do we know that there needs to be 71 judges, and what is the meaning behind it? We find in the Zohar that they quote from the Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. It says in the Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse number 7. It says there, Chulach Yafa, Rayasi Umum Einbach, which means that your beauty is complete, my beloved, and furthermore, I do not see any blemish in my beloved. Says the Zohar, what does it mean? Kulach Yafa Rayasi. What does it mean that my beloved is completely beautiful? This represents Knesset Yisrael, this represents the Jewish people. What does it mean, Umum Einbach, and I don't find any blemish in my beloved? This represents the Sanhedrin. That in the Sanhedrin there is no imperfection. And he goes on to say that why are there 71 in the Sanhedrin? Because the 70 represent the 7 midos. There are 7 attributes, 7 emotional attributes, and each one is times 10. This equals 70. Together with Jacob is 71. In other words, Jacob went down to Egypt with 70 souls, and these 70 souls represent the 7 emotions times 10 to its complete number. What is the connection between Yaakov and the Sanhedrin and Torah? The purpose of the Sanhedrin is to bring forth Torah to the entire world. And Yaakov Avinu represents the attribute of Tiferes, represents the attribute of Torah. Abraham represents kindness, charity. Yitzchak represents prayer. And Yaakov represents the study of Torah, which is the attribute of Tiferes. And we find that the name Yaakov, if you add up the letters of Jacob, equals 182. And 182 is 7 times the name of God. The name of God, the Shem Havaya, the Tetragrammaton, is 26. 7 times 26 equals 186. So here too Yaakov is connected to the number 7. Furthermore, the name of God, which is 26, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey equals 26, plus using these 4 letters, writing them out, which is called the Milui of each of these 4 letters. So, for example, the letter Hey is Hey Aleph, and Vav is Vav Aleph Vav, and Yud is Yud Vav Dalet, and Hey is Hey Aleph, equals 45. Which is Shema, which is found also in the world of Zah, alluding to the Midos, God's supernal emotions. So 45, which is God's supernal emotions, plus the name of God, which is 26, also equals 71. So implying how 71 is true on a godly level, is also true on a holy level of Jacob, Israel, and furthermore, it's also true in the number of children that came down to the land of Egypt. And all of this comes back to the 7 emotions, alluding to the 7 different types of Jews. In other words, the Sanhedrin represents every different type of Jew that is found within the entire people of Israel. What does Chassidus say about this? First and foremost, it's important to note that every law in Torah, every mitzvah in Torah, a person has to personalize. In other words, it's not a theoretical law, it's not only for others. Even a law in Torah that perhaps applies to others, a Jew must find a personal connection with this law. So what is the lesson of Shoftim, V'shoitrim, Titim Lecha, B'chol Sharecha? You shall place judges and policemen at every gate. So the Rebbe explains that the meaning is that we have within our body different gates. We have the ears that listen, and we have the eyes that see, we have the mouth that talks. These are gateways. And therefore we have to know Shoftim v'Shoftim titen lecha b'chol sharecha, that a Jew has to place judges and policemen at every gateway of his body. When his eyes look at something, the judge should ask, is this permissible? Should I be looking there? Does it belong to me? Is it mine? Is it nice? And if the answer is no, you should not be looking there. The psak, the verdict is no. Then comes along the policeman and says, close your eyes. And therefore we have eyelids to close our eyes. Similarly, we have ears. We hear something negative about another person. You're not allowed to listen to Lashon Hara. Something negative about another person. And you have to feel bad if you hear something negative about another person. Either it's true, and therefore it's terrible, or if it's not true, it's even worse, because the person is spreading slander. So what do? You have to take your ears and you got to close your ears with your finger or the bottom part of your ear, not to listen. So therefore, Shoftim v'Shoftim, again you have a judge and you have a policeman. And the same is true with your mouth. Should I say it? Should I not say it? Is it right to speak? Is it not right to speak? If the answer is no, the judge says no, don't speak right now, close your mouth. That's the policeman. If now I should speak up and not to be silent like a lamb, then be a judge. Say the law, and now the policeman will carry out the law. Say what you have to say. So that's one concept according to Chassidus. Another concept according to Chassidus goes back to the law of 71 judges who all find the individual, the defendant, guilty. We say that because of that he's acquitted. What's the reason behind it? The answer is that every Jew, afal pisha chata Yisraelhu, every Jew, even a Jew that sins, is also Yisrael, is also righteous. As the Rambam says, that really every Jew wants to fulfill all the mitzvahs. What happens, however, God forbid, sometimes Yitzray hu shetoikvoi, he has the Yetzer Hara, his evil inclination that's very strong and overpowers him and doesn't allow him to do the right thing. But really, every single Jew wants to do the right thing. So when you go to a court and you go to a Sanhedrin, says the Torah, the job of the Sanhedrin, the job of these rabbis is number one, for shaftu ha'eda, they have to judge you. But number two, more importantly, v'tzilu ha'eda, they have to find righteousness, they have to redeem you. And therefore, when this man who murdered someone else comes to the court of 71 and they only find in him evil, they don't find any good, all 71 of the judges say he is guilty, you only have the first part of the law of shaftu ha'eda. You don't have the second part of the law of v'tzilu ha'eda, because the judges are not finding any redeeming quality in this person. If that is the case, that the good inside this Jew is so concealed and so hidden, then there's no reason to give him a punishment. As we stated earlier, the purpose of a punishment is to cleanse an individual and to bring a kapara, an atonement to the individual. And therefore, if there is some good in the individual, through the punishment we can reveal all the good. But if that individual is so closed, and that even the 71 rabbis who are chachamim unevoinim, who are intellectually smart and have a great level of understanding to understand the secrets of the world and the secrets of the law, and even these rabbis, even these judges cannot find the toiv, the good in that person, then the punishment will not help. Therefore, says the Rambam, what must they do? They must deliberate until they find within him a merit. Once they find within him a merit, that finding reveals the merit in him. In other words, the dibur, the speech of the Sanhedrin, saying, no, I find a reason why he is not guilty, I find a redeeming factor in that person, that alone causes the redeeming factor to be revealed. And once it's revealed, then they can bring upon him the punishment which will bring about a complete atonement. So what do you see from here? We see from here the power of speaking positive and the power of speaking good about another Jew. Even a Jew who externally you don't see any good, and even if you are a great judge and you have the ability to look very deep, and even there with a fine-tooth comb you cannot find good, by speaking good about that person you have the ability to reveal good in that person. And that is why it's very important to encourage others and to speak good about others, for the speaking alone has a tremendous effect. There's a famous story in Hayom Yom that the Rebbe writes of how the Baal Shem Tov was once sitting at a table together with his disciples, and he put his hands on the two disciples next to him, and he asked each of the other disciples to hold hands. What happened was, prior to this, one Jew told the other, "I will tear you apart like a fish." Right after this incident, the Baal Shem Tov put his hands on his disciples and he said to them, "Hold each other's hands and close your eyes." And when they closed their eyes, what did they see? They saw how this friend was actually ripping apart his neighbor like a fish. He then told them to open their eyes, and he began to explain. He says, even though in the physical world the individual did not rip apart his neighbor like a fish, but in the world of speech, in the world of dibur, it took place. And therefore, when you speak positive, you create a positive energy in the world of speech, but has the ability to come down into the world of action. And God forbid, when you speak words of insult and words of slander, this also causes this concept to trickle down into the world of action. And therefore, to always talk positive and always be positive. And that is the idea of Shoftim v'Shotrim. To see, to be a judge, to assess the situation, and to find the good in the situation, and then v'Shotrim, to be the policeman, to carry out the law in a very practical sense, by speaking good and speaking words of encouragement. And therefore we hope and pray that we should be zoicha v'ashiva sheftayach k'v'rishayna v'yeyatzayach k'vatchila, to see the coming of Mashiach, when once again the judges will be as they are in the beginning, and the counselors will be as they were at first, with the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days.